How's it going, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the James Loud Podcast. And today our special guest is Halle from Humboldt Seed Company. How are you doing?
Doing great. Really happy to be here. This is an amazing spot you guys have.
Yeah, we've been trying to get you and your father on the show for quite a while, so I'm glad you're finally here.
Well, I'm super stoked that I made it, and I know my dad will hopefully make it in soon as well. He's a hard guy to lock down sometimes.
It seems like he's really busy.
He's definitely very busy. He's kind of the work 7 days a week mentality type of person. So he's either at the farm busting his ass or at our office dealing with accounting and phone calls and the whole nine. So
when you guys have really become an international company over the last few years, especially, like I mean, following your Instagram post, from what I see, you guys are in Morocco, you guys are all over. Saw you guys at Cannabis.
Yeah, Spain is always a big one for us. We have kind of our affiliate branch over there, and we have a super awesome crew that helps us deal with all of the packaging and, does all the setup for Cannabis there.
Right.
They're really essential for our operation, and it's kind of amazing just even going and seeing it all there because, I grew up like where everything was super hush-hush. Like, my dad always had a fake job that I'd tell my teachers about. Like, right. I mean, it wasn't fake, but, it was a cover job. Right. and so switching to going to somewhere like Spain, which was always a dream place to visit, I think, for a lot of people. Barcelona is just an incredible city. And having, hundreds of people recognize our strains and
thousands
tell us they love them. Yeah, thousands.
I swear, thousands of people.
More even. Yeah, it's crazy. Cannabis is always a really, really special experience.
Yeah, it's my favorite event. I guess Germany was amazing this year. I didn't go to Germany, but I heard that was amazing. But Cannabis is the best. It's my favorite event of the year. It's where I get to see my friends from all over the world. MJ Biz is its own thing, and that's cool too, but nothing like Cannabis. There's just so much passion there.
Yeah, well, it reminds me of like the good old days, like, original Emerald Cup. And I didn't even start going Emerald Cup until like 2017. But, it's people who are just truly gathering from like passion around cannabis. And I think, a part of that is the fact that they don't have like super recreational industry. It's kind of that gray market, especially for genetics. And so, you have a lot of these super unique characters that just really love to grow. And totally. Then you have like the total alternative, which is MJ BizCon, and it's, all the suits in the industry, which isn't really my thing.
Yeah, so like MJ Biz has really grown on me over the years. And I feel like the last year was really good because it was about people that wanted to do business. And there are the suits, and there's the hybrid people like me where I deal with the people that are suits. I mean, I don't consider myself a suit, but at a certain point, just like your dad, I would say that he has to deal with a lot of suits.
Yeah, well, at a certain point, once you're like growing and developing a business, you have to shake hands and get down with the certain crowds. And
for sure,
I think being able to, fit in both of those situations is definitely part of what makes us successful. But at the end of the day, I would way rather hang out with the Cannabis crew. Totally.
And it's like that in Mexico, and it's like that. I'm sure Germany's like that, and all these, not all of the other events, but a lot of the other events, they have that 2010 vibe, like 2000 West Coast event vibe, where we had High Times Cannabis Cups and Emerald Cups, and it wasn't about the money, and the money was like secondary. And now you see these events like MJ Biz, and I think the money is first, unfortunately.
Right.
And
well, I think, and that kind of speaks on like the entire industry in California. Right. Almost anywhere that's gone recreational at this point, it kind of draws in the wrong kind of energy. We were just talking about it. People seem to look at cannabis as almost like their golden ticket. They're like, this is my identity now, and I'm gonna make a bunch of money off of it. And there's no like true passion. A lot of them don't even smoke.
Well, their passion is coming from the wrong place. I totally agree. And I mean, I think that's why this show is good, because we get so many passionate people that are beyond that, or they were before that, and they see the value of cannabis for what it is. And it's so much more than money, right? Like, that's just a byproduct of amazing cannabis. I think that slowly but surely this market with recreational is kind of going in a bad direction in a lot of ways, but also the people that are really passionate, they would do it whether there was no money or not.
Yeah. Well, it's become like a pretty, volatile and ruthless industry. And like, the people who are getting really competitive about it and bottoming out the prices in the market, like those aren't the people at the end of the day that are really just truly passionate about the plant. But it sucks because the reality of that is it's weeded out a lot of really, really amazing people who, were highly dedicated to cultivating in a symbiotic way with our local areas and, truly just doing it to like produce the medicine that they love.
Yeah, I mean, that's unfortunate. And it is also getting rid of the really bad growers too, which that's the part I like. Yeah, because there was a lot of, I have some friends that were just getting by on middle grade flower. And it's like, you can't do that anymore. If you're producing stuff for $650 a pound and you can't sell it for $7, then you're just in a bad place.
Yeah. Yeah, the margins definitely aren't what they used to be.
No, they're not even close to what they used to be. And it's a real struggle for a lot of people and a lot of good people.
Yeah, no, it's been a hard process to watch because, for me, I grew up in the Emerald Triangle. I grew up in Humboldt County. And so cannabis was always just a major aspect of my community. It was, something that I never even like thought twice about until probably like my first DARE class. I was like, oh,
wow,
this isn't just another vegetable, I guess. But, it was.
But it was treated like that as a kid.
It was a communal commodity.
Right.
And,
well, the economy in Humboldt was really based around cannabis. There's no other way to look at it. Like from the late 70s on, like it just grew momentum. And I feel like it's what built Humboldt County, Mendocino County, Trinity. I think a lot of the economy was based around it. And there's, it's an amazing, beautiful thing too.
Yeah, absolutely agree with that because, for me, it was like I grew up just watching all of the growers like seriously support the local community on their backs. And, when it came to our nonprofits and, our school fundraisers, it was the grower families that were there supporting. And even though we might not have been paying conventional taxes, the money came around. Like there was definitely some people who were in and out and didn't invest in the local economy. But at the end of the day, I think now you can really see the difference that it made in the area because, businesses are struggling and it's a major effect now that things have shifted. And it's definitely sad to see it. But, that's part of what made me like grow up to know and love what I do and, the cannabis industry as a whole so much was just seeing the way it kind of tied everybody together. And one of my favorite stories is our annual pie auction at our school. And it was always this crazy like competitive thing where whatever grower dad had the best harvest, he was buying an $800 pie that year.
Wow.
And they'd do it auction style. So they'd be going back and forth and they'd be like, I'll do 500. And, it was the way of giving back. And it was, it was a little bit more, authentic and direct than the way things are handled now. I mean, I know as a cannabis business, I don't get the choice of allocating my tax money where I would like it to go. And back then in Humboldt, that was kind of how it went. You were like, I want to support the school.
Right.
I want to support the local nonprofit. My stepmom still works for EPIC, which is Environmental Protection Information Center. And she said back then they would come in and growers would just drop off a bag of cash anonymously and be like, I want no credit, nothing else, but
they just want to do the right thing.
Like, I'm just here to, take care of my local area. Right. It was a beautiful thing.
Yeah, it's wild. I mean, that maybe some people didn't pay conventional taxes, but they did prison sentences for us to get to the point where we're at. And I think a lot of people forget that. I think we're very short-sighted sometimes. Especially these people that weren't here before and now have come in as investors or come in. They didn't know what it was like before or the struggles that people went through to get us to the point where we're at now.
Yeah. I mean, absolutely. It was, it was crazy times. And like I said, I grew up with my dad as a grower, but he always kind of had his side job. It was for the county and he was doing, local freshwater surveys. And, it was great that he did that. But at the end of the day, it was such a hidden thing at the time. And so just seeing the way that it shifted and like,
you couldn't really talk about it.
Yeah. Well, it was definitely a lot more like a forbidden topic, if that makes sense. Everyone knew that it was there and everyone was kind of doing it, but nobody was discussing it in the ways that we do now. And so
on podcasts.
Yeah, well, exactly. It still feels foreign to me sometimes when I sit down or,
It still feels
start
foreign to me
talking
too.
about
Like,
it or see a camera rolling around at our farm, I'm like, this feels a little off, but
totally. Well, and we have all these dispensaries now, and it's like, and I think someone posted the other day, I think it was Maya from Ohm was posting about how outdoor is great. And I think there's a lot of people that she thinks it's a superior product. And I think it's in a lot of ways, it's a superior product. And I think the reason for that is most people never get to experience outdoor in its peak and its prime when it's at the perfect time after it's harvested and cured out.
Right.
It's such a short little window. And so people were like, well, indoor's better. And it's like, okay, well, indoors better. Why? Because it looks better?
Yeah, you're like, have you ever had a freshly cured fire jar of outdoor?
Yeah,
I don't know if you'd say that.
Yeah, and it's not all about looks. And I think Instagram has kind of perpetuated this thing that it has to look a certain way.
Yeah.
And I mean, we eat with our eyes, right? At the end of the day, people are looking at stuff. They want stuff that looks amazing. But some of the best stuff I grew up with, it didn't look good. It just made you feel amazing, or it tasted absolutely amazing, or both.
I've had like, or big pheno hunts every year. It ends up getting narrowed down to major taste test time. And I've seen so many samples where I wouldn't have necessarily gone and picked it out of a jar on a shelf. But I try it and it's like that flavor profile. It hits right. I don't know how else to say it.
Totally. It's so funny.
It checks all the boxes for me. And I've had some amazing indoor too. I've had some great mix light. But at the end of the day, it's something that's never really made that much sense to me to put things in an artificial environment and, expect it to produce to its full potential.
Right. Well, I think hiding from the police is why we did it originally. Right. And had we not had to do that, it would be a whole different world.
Yeah.
But
absolutely.
I still love good indoor. Don't get me wrong. I smoke mostly indoor, but this time of year is when like the good outdoors, it's like we're starting to see amazing outdoor coming down. And like through the end of the year, it's going to be at its peak. And there's all kinds of good stuff. But when you look at a plant when you're pheno hunting, a lot of people don't understand this. They think you can just walk through the field and pick the winners. It's like, it's not that easy. Yeah. Half the time, the stuff that I think is amazing that checks all the other boxes when it comes to the smoke test, it's like sometimes it's a big letdown. Other times it doesn't translate in the flower.
Oh yeah, no, definitely. And that's why, we get a lot of questions about this because, we do our massive pheno hunts. And that was, one of the few things that we took from the whole legalization thing.
Yeah.
And we're like actually stoked about it. We were like, we can actually look at 10,000 plants in a field now. And that's something that we never had access to before. You definitely weren't blowing up your Gorilla Grow with 10,000 plants at the time. And so, it definitely expanded our horizon, but that's the first step in my process. Is I go and I try to eliminate certain factors. I smell it. I look for things that I know I like, or whatever trait we're looking for in a particular cross. And then, there's so much more to it after that. Then you have to go test it. You have to smoke it. A lot of the time, your eyes telling you something completely different than, what your actual results are going to be. So
for sure,
it's, it's definitely a major reality.
Well, 10,000 plants. So most people wouldn't even understand what it looks like to do a 10,000 plant pheno hunt. That's pretty wild. And then you can't really smoke everything. So you have to eliminate a whole bunch of stuff right out the gate. If
I'm going to just average up numbers, it's crazy because I take 2 clones off of every plant too. So the first year we did the big 10,000 plant hunt, we had 20,000 clones. We had to keep them alive for a month and a half, 2 months. And I'm like, shit, this is kind of stressful. But, at the end of the day, we ended up killing 99% of them, maybe keeping 50 or 100. And that's what we narrow it down to every year. And then it progresses on to the next steps of the process, which of course is testing, smoking, growing them in different environments. And once it passes every single one of those categories, that's when you actually have a winner.
Yeah.
It's not like, we can't walk out into the field and say, hey, this is a winner and this is going to be the one.
It doesn't work like that.
No.
But you guys are working on early finishers. I think you guys are working on triploids. I've heard all kinds of amazing stuff that you guys are doing.
Yeah, we try to keep it interesting.
Yeah.
That's one of the fun things about breeding is it's a constantly evolving industry and, there's always something new and fun to do. The triploids was definitely a cool one. I think diploidy in general is a fun thing to play with overall. We've seen a lot of success with that in other crops like watermelons, strawberries, for example, are like an octoploid, I believe. Mm-hmm. So, you know, it's something that is a major tool in agriculture. But then again, I also find that just looking and tasting and sampling is honestly like more successful for, you know, having amazing results than taking 100% the scientific route.
It just doesn't work. It doesn't pencil out.
I think it has to be even like 50-50 of both, I would say. We try to take a super scientific approach to our breeding, but at the same time, it's like you have to, you know, seriously be into consuming cannabis to actually successfully pheno hunt or find anything.
Right. Yeah, the tests will only tell you so much about the plant. It's like, we take a whole bunch of data points when we're pheno hunting, and that's all good. But at the end of the day, it's really, you got to pass this smoke test.
Right.
And, I think more and more people want early finishers. So now you can narrow it down to stuff that finishes early because everybody's trying to beat everybody else to harvest. It's
classic.
Wild.
It seems like it's like the pendulum always swings different ways, in my opinion, because we work with a lot of outdoor farms. And so particularly with outdoor, you see the differences. One year we'll get a lot of early rain and people are like, fuck the early strains. All my late stuff came out the best. And then one year, we end up having a super late winter and their early shit is just super prime, amazing. Mm-hmm. And so it's funny to see the way it shifts. And, there are a lot of different like environmental factors that you consider with outdoor growing, but at the end of the day, it's just what feels right.
Right. Well, there's something to be said for long flowering varieties too. Like I think that ignoring those is just, I don't know what the word's stupid, but I think that like we get so stuck into that we basically bottleneck ourselves into these things like purple candy gas. It's all got to be purple candy gas.
Until the trend gets blown out.
Yeah, exactly. And then everything's that for a while. And then we got to go in another direction. I mean, I think the best way to do is go in all these different directions. And then as the market pivots, you can shift from one to the next. But I really like longer flowering varieties. I like the effect of sativas, not all sativas, but same thing with not all, the shorter flowering varieties, the wider leaf varieties that are the more narcotic stuff. Some of them I like and some of them it's not for me.
Yeah. Yeah, I can definitely see where you're coming from there. Love a good sativa when it's the right time for it.
Yeah, for sure. There's just so many different things. It's like Whitethorn Rose is another one I really like that's really gotten popular.
Yeah.
Like everybody knows about it. Our producer was telling me he bumped into somebody recently and asked him what they were buying from the dispensary and they're like, Whitethorn Rose. And I'm like, that's awesome.
I know. So, that one is a really honestly amazing strain. It has super unique terpene profile, in my opinion, and
it does, and it has this effect.
That's what I was gonna say. It
makes you feel good.
Just right. I don't know what it is, but
I mean, I call it feel good weed, and that's what I really like is when something just checks that feel good box, where like I could smoke it in the morning, the afternoon, evening, it doesn't matter, and it makes me feel really good. And it's not like it checks that sedative box or that really the stimulant side. It's like there where it's like, okay, it makes me feel good, and I feel like most people in the world, if they were able to experience and get the same feeling that I get from that, they would really like weed.
The THC thing, as much as it is relevant, it's something that it's kind of like driving the entire world of breeding at this time, I feel like.
Unfortunately, yes.
Yeah, unfortunately. Yeah. I mean, I've never like gone out and been super amazed by a plant just because I think it's going to have high THC, right?
37%, it's got to be a winner. Yet, there are some 37% varieties that I think are absolutely amazing. But then 37%, because the testing is all over the place from one lab to the next, it's like, what is 37% really?
Yeah. I mean, that's another thing that's, a serious concern, honestly, is it's not meant to be a for-profit industry if you want accurate test results. And that's what it is. And so it's become competitive, of course. And, next thing you know, you have one lab calling you up being like, well, I'll give you 10% higher than this guy if you switch over.
Well, the second it's incentivized, it's an incentive for people to cheat and to falsify the records. And that's the problem. I think I'm not big on government oversight with anything except for testing. I think we need more oversight on testing. Testing for pesticides and all that stuff, that's great. But really, when it comes to percentages and stuff like that, I think that there needs to be standardization. It should be run by the government.
Yeah.
And I get a little bit of hate for that, but I feel like that's the one thing where we need to take away anything that incentivizes people to lie about the results.
Right.
Because everybody wants a leg up on their competition.
Absolutely. I mean, I feel the same way because, as a breeder, it's actually seriously inconvenient to, have labs falsifying numbers, essentially. Like, I've straight up had labs call us and be like, well, what THC percentage were you expecting to get on this? Like, what do you want, basically? And we're like, we want you to tell us what it is. Like, they're like, okay, it's going to be an extra week. We were like, well, that's kind of concerning. Like,
we're pivoting to do everything in-house for that. I mean, we will have third-party testing as well, but like, I feel like in-house is the best because then you can get results as fast as you need it.
Yeah, exactly. And you could have a consistent method, to be honest, because even just things as simple as adjusting your moisture content when you're running the liquid chromatograph is going to change your
It totally skews it. Yeah, the drier it is, the higher the result's going to be.
We used to have a orange photonics that we used quite often, and that was just one of the first things we noticed was like, it's so easy to skew your results just with the tiniest little changes on that thing.
Right.
It's kind of inevitable that like there is always going to be a desire to get higher numbers, but I do agree that I think it needs to be more heavily regulated. The only way at this point, like I feel comfortable with any data we collect is if we're running it ourselves or making sure that it's done the exact same way with the exact same moisture content every single time. There's so many variables that you have to keep track of in that situation.
Well, and it's like, it makes it so hard to go from state to state, doing it the right way in metric, going from state to state, because all these labs are so different and how they get test results are not only how they get test results, but how they prep the samples and where they get the samples. Some states, you give them the flower. Others, like California, they pick it from a batch. And it's just, there's no consistency across the board. And it's kind of a joke.
Yeah, well, I mean, I've even noticed things like different test results on the same branch, but it's just a different bud. Like, so it really is hard to pinpoint. And, you see outrageous stuff these days. Like, I've heard outrageous numbers multiple times now. It's like 45, 50% THC. And I'm like,
it's crazy.
Wouldn't that melt? Yeah. Like, it wouldn't even be a solid bud at that point. It would just
Christmas
be mush.
Yeah. Right. Well, maybe it's because somebody put a whole bunch of keef on the plant.
That's another classic one I've heard of is people are just, rolling their bud in some keef right before they send it in. So
yeah, I mean, I remember the hash they tested in the 40s, not only 10 years ago, something like that. And it was like 40% hash. And now they say there's 50% flour. It's like, it's crazy.
I'm like, the math ain't mathing on that.
No, and there's so much stuff like that. So when you're doing your field runs and you guys are smelling plants, do you smell the side branches or the top branches? I think everybody's different. I prefer the side.
I like to do like a little bit of both, to be honest.
Yeah.
But generally I go for it depends on how tall the plant is, to be honest. But I generally end up going for the sides.
The 12 footers, you're probably not going for the center cola.
Definitely no tops in that situation.
Yeah.
And as much as smell is like one of the number one things we're looking for in that situation, there's also so many other variables that we're looking at. So when it comes down to it, it's like you can kind of, once you're walking through, you can kind of eliminate a few things just automatically by walking by. You're like, that one has shit structure. It's doing weird stuff. Like it molded early, whatever it is. You're eliminating a few things as you go. Mm-hmm. And, then you walk up to one that is kind of just a jaw dropper. And that's like, that's what I like to call the unicorn plants. And, that's when you actually look deeper into it and start taking data. So I'm all up in that shit when it comes down to those ones. It's like, once I find the one where sitting there, I'm, evaluating its structure. I'm evaluating the trichome density. I'm evaluating, terpene strength, of course, mold resistance. There's a lot of different factors.
For sure.
So, yeah, it's a labor of love. But I would like to say that I probably smell top to bottom when it comes down to a really good one.
Right. It's all about those unicorns. And doing pheno hunts that big, you actually really do get to see a lot of unicorns. It's like when you pop 100 seeds and you get that 1%, but if you're going for that 1% of 10,000, that's 100 plants. There's 100 special things out there. Because I feel like most of the time you're going to find 1% that's really good. And but I'm good. I'm good with smaller hunts too. I really like especially if I know my lines and I kind of know the direction I'm going for. I could pop 20 seeds of something if I know what I'm looking for that I've made before. And I'm like, okay, well, what I'm looking for is going to be found in probably at 20 to 30.
Yeah.
Sometimes more, sometimes less, but it's just depending on how well you know your lines.
Right. Absolutely. I definitely agree with that one. And, for us, it's really with pheno hunting, we're looking for something that's just a total anomaly. And, a lot of the time it isn't a perfect representation of a combination of the parents. It's something that went way off in a different track.
Recessive stuff that just comes
but
out of
that's what
nowhere.
makes it special. That's what makes it exciting. And that's one thing I always have to remind our crews that we pheno hunt with is I'm like, please do not rate every plant.
Yeah.
You need to use your better judgment a little bit here and the process of elimination and, kind of pick and choose as you go, because not every single one out of this field of 2,000 plants deserves to get written up.
Yeah, I mean, that's so much work. There's so much work that goes into working on that many plants and having them grown correctly. And like with indoor, it's easy to grow them out multiple times to try to get similar results. But with the outdoor, it's like you can grow them, but it takes a whole nother year. I guess if you're depping them, it's a little different too. You could do multiple.
I mean, what we usually do is we'll, do the big mega outdoor hunt, and then we take our winners and we're actually just starting this process right now from this last year, but, we have them in clone form. They're like this big at the point that we found the winners. And so then, we finally get a couple cuts off of them essentially, and we flower those out indoor just to do the second process of, seeing if they actually work out.
Right.
It's a totally different environment, and, there can also just be different expressions.
Totally
overall.
Different expressions sometimes.
Yeah.
Better or worse. You
kind of have to see all angles at this point. Like, my preference is to, do outdoor, mixed light, depth, indoor, all of it. Mm-hmm. And we normally do all of that R&D before we ever even release it to the public. So there's a lot more that goes into it than just going out there and picking a plant and being like, this is the one. I mean, sometimes I wish it was that simple, but then it wouldn't be as fun.
Right. Totally. So I'd heard of Humboldt Seeds, heard of you guys for a long time, but then the first time I ran any of your gear was Blueberry Muffin. And it was a special plant. I was given Blueberry Muffin from someone in Sacramento as DJ Short's Blueberry. And I grew it out and I'm like, this is not DJ. This is way different. There's no way.
It's funny. People always ask us if it's crossed with his, and we're like, if you know his blueberry, then you know this isn't
it's nothing. And it's like, it's an amazing plant. And I did some breeding with it too, but that was like, I was like, well, you guys are onto something with that. That was really special.
That one was a really special one. It was one of those, like I said, just anomaly plants. It was, it was way back when, I think 2010 or something like that. And, we were doing the big outdoor grow, and we had our whole crew and our manager up there, and a bunch of the trimmers went up to harvest, and they literally like stopped dead harvesting that one. And we're like, this smells just like blueberry muffins. Like, we need to set this aside. And sure enough, my dad fell in love with it. It was a good one.
Yeah. It's got its own thing. The structure is amazing too. It's just, the color, the structure, the smell, I mean, the smoke, everything about it, it kind of checks all the boxes. And it's a good breeder too.
I feel that way too. But, that one's a nostalgic strain for me. I always say it's kind of my favorite, but it's like probably the first thing I ever smoked. I grew up just even smelling it just around the house or in the dry rooms and whatnot. So to me, that one definitely always has a special place in my heart.
Yeah, it's another one that you smoke a joint of it translates all the way through the smoke, and it's like that. Not a lot of stuff does that. There's a handful of things out there that do, but that's definitely one of them.
No, it's crazy. I mean, it's like it hits your tongue, and sometimes I'm like, was that even weed? Like, it tastes like you're eating a blueberry muffin.
It's a dessert,
and like
it's got the
you can
dessert
even
profile.
feel it in your throat. Like, it's just this creamy, like, sweetness. It's a good one.
It's a good one for sure. Yeah. And so you guys have crossed and made lines out of that and done some breeding work with that. I think some of your new stuff that even has that in it is one of the parents. And
we definitely have played a lot with the blueberry muffin. It's one that we get a lot of demand for. So, we have our blueberry cupcake, which is kind of like the new rendition of it. Blueberry muffin times wedding cake.
Yeah.
So it kind of just has that like bag appeal frost layer. It didn't
Little
really
bready,
add any new terps, maybe a little bit of,
Right.
bready cakiness, but
it's tough though when you have something that's that profound and that's that different, kind of like how Skittles it is. Kind of like how Skittles, basically, Skittles is the apex of that. But then when you look at the crosses, the S1s and the Skittles crosses, is there anything really better than Skittles as Skittles in it? It's like, it's, there's people that'll argue this and that, but like really Skittles is the one.
Yeah. I mean, I have to absolutely agree there. I think, there's no point in chasing the hype train, especially in the breeding world anymore at this point. It's so like constantly changing and, it's unpredictable. It's an unpredictable market. And so I personally think, for us, we just like to stick to what we know.
Right.
And the classic blueberry muffin is the one that I know and love.
Right.
So yeah, I don't think a blueberry cupcake or any of the new crosses are ever gonna change my opinion on that one.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I feel like, especially with something so nostalgic.
It absolutely is. I mean, like I can, I'll smell the bag from fucking 50 feet away, and I'm like, that's the muffin. There it is.
Right.
Or we just harvested our seed chamber of it, and I wasn't actually even there for the harvest, and I went to go close up the dry shed container, and I immediately, as soon as I opened the door, I'm like, blueberry muffin.
Yeah, totally. I'm sure rosin. I don't think I've smoked any blueberry muffin rosin, but I bet you it tastes amazing.
It tastes great, but it's not a good yielder. To be honest, it's
some of the best ones aren't. Like, I mean, Skittles doesn't yield. Well, Skittles yields okay, but Skittles is super high in terps.
It's decent for rosin. Washes like shit.
Yeah,
to be honest, but there's a lot of people who still do it because it's so worth it for that terp profile. It's just like it's uncanny muffin smell.
Well, it's like Skittles rosin.
Day.
People do stuff that yields 2 or 3 times as much, but sometimes it's worth it just for that flavor.
Oh yeah, no, I love the Skittles. It's honestly, I was super stoked when you said that that's what you had to sample today, because that's one of, if I had to pick a favorite that isn't a Humboldt Seed Company strain, I think that'd be one of my top ones.
Nice. Yeah, there's something special about Skittles, and it's like, it's the flavor, it's the effect. I feel like it's lighter on the effect, and sometimes I like stronger, sometimes I like more sativa leaning stuff, but Skittles has its own thing, and I enjoy smoking really good Skittles. There's just, it's like one thing, it's in the arsenal, and I'm always, when I get a fresh bag of it, I smoke it till it's not fresh anymore, and then I'll move on to something. But like, it's real easy to just smoke joints of Skittles all day.
Absolutely.
So you want to taste the first one?
Yeah, let's do it.
What we have here is 2 different joints that I've rolled up. They were grown in the same environment with everything the same, except for the substrate. We have one that was grown with soil and one that was grown with cocoa. And so we're going to do a trial here to see which one you prefer.
I don't get to know which one's which yet.
Not yet.
Okay.
That would ruin the test. But yeah, I'm curious as to see if you get the same results that I got yesterday. And, I get excited about stuff, but
Proper doobie here.
Yeah, so we've been R&Ding because we're going in metric with joints next year. And so we've been R&Ding a whole bunch of different styles, machine rolled versus hand rolled. I like the hand rolled the best, but as far as convenience and cost, it's tough. But it's got to smoke, it's got to check all the boxes. And it's like, there's so many different sizes, different tips, different papers, all these different things that you can do to make a good product. And at the end of the day, we want the best product out there.
Yeah.
And so
research and development.
Yeah. It's so much more than just having good flour when you have a product like a pre-roll. But I feel like convenience is the future. Pretty tasty, right?
It's really tasty. I like that.
There's so many different things that you can do to change it. Like, you can change the diameter. You can go from a 10 milliliter to a 12 millimeter. 10 millimeter to a 12 millimeter, and using the same paper and same crutch, everything, and it burns hotter with the bigger millimeter, like significantly, to where you can taste more terps if it's a little bit thinner. And before I like these big monster joints, I like the 3.5 grams, and that's cool. But as far as like, if you're going for terps, like the smaller, not necessarily this is perfect, and then it gets smaller than this and it's not as terpy. So
gotta find that perfect middle ground. I mean, that hit really nice, I have to say. So honestly, it's good work. It's come time that we actually start doing like serious comparative analysis and real R&D, because before it's like everyone has their theories and they're like, well, this is the way, but
bro science. There's so much bro science out there.
But that's one thing I have like actually been, enjoying lately, is seeing people put the proof in the pudding, I think is the phrase.
Yeah, and I mean, it takes a lot of effort and time and a significant amount of money to do proper R&D. And a lot of people don't understand that what exactly goes into a good product. Mm-hmm. And it takes a lot of time and energy and a lot of passion. And sometimes you have to put out a lot of money before you get any return on that money.
Yeah.
And, but you're doing it because you want the best product.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, we get that a lot, just even with strain releases. People see us do a pheno hunt and they're like, can I get it now? And we're like, give us 3 or 4 years. Seriously.
And then there's companies that put out 400 new crosses a year. And it's like, they're not doing the R&D on it. It's like we make 300 out crosses a year, but we probably only release 50, maybe at the most. And that's usually a combined effort of multiple years of breeding where we're like, okay, we've tested this out. We like this and this. But, it's like, and there's so many different companies and different models. And I think there's no one way to do it. But, I mean, there's the right way, but what the right way is for each person is so different.
Right. Well, I mean, I always make the comparison when it comes to breeding and, strain development. You would think of breeding dogs, for an example. Like, you're not going to cross 2 different breeds of dogs, a poodle and a pug together, and, immediately have super uniform babies, perfect result. And so, like, as much as, I admire anybody who wants to do pollination projects and experiment with breeding and, make their own stuff, it's not, in my opinion, how the process should be carried out.
No, and we're working with unstable genetics, so it's like we're already working with this mutt for the most part, right? And so like getting to a point where it's stable takes a lot of work and a lot of energy, and you're getting rid of a lot of stuff to find the good stuff. It's not like, okay, we cross these 2 things, here you go. And that's kind of the model now, but I don't see that being the model of the future. I know your dad and you guys definitely don't see that as the model of the future, because I feel like the stuff I see from Instagram is, you guys are putting in the real work.
I think, it's been a time-consuming process, I have to say. And it's, really special that my dad kind of saw that he had a passion in breeding. And with it, it started from him working in salmon genomics. And then he shifted into breeding his own cannabis because, I mean, this is an assumption, but I think he was probably getting some unreliable genetics back then. And he's like, I have a gorilla grow to run and a family to feed all of a sudden. And I need stable, reliable seed. Right. And, that's what sparked the whole thing. But it's also meant that we've had the ability to build our lines for a really long time. And so, stability is obviously an important thing for us. But, I think that's just generally the expectation of, an advanced breeding company is like, I don't buy corn from the grocery and
me neither
expect it to be, 5 different kinds and different colors, and one's sweet and one tastes like water.
The corn it's the worst, because it's like we have 2 types of corn now that are available in grocery stores pretty much. Yet there's so many different types of corn out there in existence. But accessibility, it's another one.
I'm trying to think here.
Both are good. Feel free to test them as many times as you'd like. And so your dad got some grants, right? He was one of the first people I've heard of that got some grants to do, I think, research and development.
Not in cannabis.
But for fish, maybe.
For fish.
Yeah.
Yeah. He was always really passionate about salmon preservation. And that's kind of what I grew up with his, official job being was he was the director for the Salmon River Restoration Council for a while. And he wrote a bunch of grants while he was there.
Nice.
And so, yeah, he's always been really, really, really passionate about that. And we just recently also had the wonder of seeing the Klamath dams be taken out, which was like what I kind of grew up with him fighting for constantly. It was a huge part of my childhood, and we would go to all the little protests at Pacificor and hold algae up, and I had my like fish puppet that I'd tote around, and I lost my train of thought. I'm already stoned.
It's pretty good.
This shit's smacking.
So, as far as preference, which one did you like the better taste of? I guess because the effect, now we've smoked both of them. It's hard to say.
Yeah. I think I like the first one.
100%.
Yeah.
I'm right there with you. The first one is soil grown. It's almost like perfumey. Like it's Skittles, but it's like 2 levels higher than the cocoa as far as the flavor. Like it's still got the candy and everything, but it almost has like this perfume. Yeah, it's got this perfume flavor. It's really, really nice.
I was hoping I picked the soil one, I have to say. So
yeah,
I really like that actually.
I mean, these are the kind of tests that everybody should be doing. I think I do like cocoa. Don't get me wrong. I do smoke a lot of cocoa, but like seeing Skittles like this is really, it's almost obvious. Not even almost. To me, that's pretty obvious that soil makes a better product. As far as I did the effect test. So I smoked them a few hours apart.
Okay.
And then I smoked them a few hours apart again. And I was like, okay, the soil definitely has a stronger effect, but it wasn't like as much of a come down and crash either. I felt like it lifts you up and then it makes you feel really good. And then you just go down gentle. Whereas like the effect from the other one, I felt like I smoked it a bunch and it wasn't as strong, but I definitely felt it after I hadn't smoked for like 30 minutes.
One of them or both of them, it's doing the trick.
Yeah, nice.
Definitely got me stoned.
So coming from Humboldt, did you go to college?
I mean, I kind of just messed around and took some classes. It was like right as legalization kind of hit. And so I was in school for business at the time, and I was working with my dad also pretty consistently, like basically full time. And got to the point where I was just like, I'm learning like 5 times more working like hands-on with my dad every day, Ended up just kind of going with that route instead.
Right.
And, it was obviously what I wanted to do as well. I just wasn't necessarily what I imagined doing right when I graduated high school. It was always kind of our like low key,
Mm-hmm.
It was, it was like a little side business. And next thing you know, it was like our whole entire reality.
Yeah. It's pretty wild that, from 2018 to now, where it went from recreational to today, it's changed so much. The industry, even, we had lack of stability maybe from 2013 to 2018 as well, but it was very different.
Yeah. I mean, it's been a wild ride for me. Definitely. Like, I didn't ever really imagine that it was going to go in this direction. And, for our brand to have made it this far, it's kind of mind-blowing.
You guys have had seeds in smoke shops, and you guys have you were at a Champs trade show.
Yeah, we were. We do a lot of different events. We try to be like, as well exposed as we can, and we like check out new areas when they start. We did Mary Jane Berlin this year, which was really cool.
So you went to that?
I didn't go, but
Me neither.
I heard it was amazing.
Yeah, I heard it was. I'm going next year.
I probably will be going this year.
100% I'll be there. I'm excited to go. I wish I would have gone because it sounds like it was like one of the best events.
I know. I keep hearing that. One is just so exciting to go and, be able to spend time with people in these like new areas that haven't necessarily like experienced the world of cannabis as we know it today in California. And they're all just, so genuine and excited, enthusiastic, and
so enthusiastic.
Can't wait.
They're not jaded yet. Like the people here.
Exactly.
So I feel like everybody's a little jaded by the industry. And over there, I mean, I go to Mexico. I'm going to St. Vincent. Like I go to the Caribbean with Marlon Asher, who I think I met you the first time actually was backstage at a Slightly Stupid show.
Yeah.
And I can't remember which one, but yeah. So we have Marlon. He was performing with them.
Marlon's a great guy.
And we're going to the Caribbean on Friday to gift the country seeds. So the Minister of Agriculture is letting us import seeds in the country, and we're going to go gift them to the people. We made some crosses in 2019, 2020, and 21, and I did some banana crosses a while back. And so we brought those for the island, and it should be a lot of fun.
That's incredible. That's going to be a really exciting trip.
Yeah,
I definitely feel like times are really changing, and like having situations like that happening is something I never would have imagined as a little kid that was like, scared to talk about anything related.
The government is very like supportive of cannabis there, which is so different than here, because I feel like here we're just kind of a thorn in the side of the government, the whole industry. And over there, the government has the Cannabis Authority, and they're like, how can we help our people and make our people better? How can we use this plant as medicine? It's medical over there. So they look at it from a medicinal standpoint, but there's really passionate people. And it's just so different than the government here in that regard.
Yeah, I know. It's interesting, like the approach that, but it's the American way, I guess, is industry for profit, and that's it. Right. There's so much energy out there in the world for cannabis, and the really special thing about seeds is just seeing how they travel like that, and the way that you can have a seed come from Northern California and go change somebody's life in a totally different place.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. Yeah. You have one big plant that has 10,000 seeds on it, and where those seeds go and how much
right.
That changes the world. I feel like cannabis makes the world a better place. And so in making seeds, you're doing that exponentially, which is pretty wild when you like really dive into it.
Definitely mind-blowing to me. I still constantly have to second guess and question like if it's all even real, because places I've never even dreamed of that I'm seeing people growing our seeds.
Totally. It's amazing how it brings everybody together. Like you can be totally the other end of the spectrum from whatever. And, you can like heavy metal music or Grateful Dead music, and you both like weed, and you get along real easily.
That's very true.
And I mean, it just it's like kind of like food is like that too, how it just brings people together.
I know. I have a big passion for combining weed and food. It's like two of my favorite things. And I think it is because it's like such, it's similar vibes that it really just draws everyone together. You're not focused on the other bullshit for just a second. You're just stoned and having a good night.
They both make people happy.
Right.
But yeah, I'm right there with you. Although I'm not really big on putting cannabis in my food. I like smoking and I like eating and I like keeping them separate. I was a chef and I really love food and I love cannabis. But together it's like, I grew up eating brownies and drinking crazy drinks that had cannabis in them that were super strong. But for me, it's like I always been like, you eat it and then it makes you feel high an hour later, an hour and a half later. I like enjoying the food with my cannabis.
Yeah, I definitely kind of have to agree with you on that one. I've never been like the big edibles person. I don't know what it is about me, but I can't even get high off of them.
So you eat a whole bunch, you don't get high?
I've tried like so many times. I really genuinely have. And I heard it's like some digestive enzyme potentially. There was some report that came out. I don't know what it is, but
you're not the first person. So Kay from Trichome Technologies, he's another amazing breeder / extract artist / the guy who, the reason they do the extraction they do, or we as a society and as a community, the reason we do it the way we do it today is from Kay from Trichome Technologies, and his wife, same thing. She could eat 1,000 milligrams, nothing.
Yeah, well, I realized there was something definitely wrong when I like started recommending stuff to friends, and I was like, "Oh, it's really mellow. Like, you'll be fine." I ate 2 last night. She like ended up having an entire panic attack and got just so high. And this is a girl that smokes a lot, so there's definitely something a little wrong here.
Our body chemistries are also uniquely different. It's amazing how edibles can affect people so differently. And then you can like for me, I can smoke all day long and then go eat an edible and I'm toast from 20 milligrams.
Yeah.
So, and then other people, 500 milligrams. I've seen people have bad trips on 500 milligrams too.
Yeah. I mean, some people get really messed up off of them. I've never had the experience. I'm like, honestly, a little curious.
Yeah.
I don't know. I've never felt like so high that I'm like really unhappy about it.
Right. Yeah. You just
Like,
have to eat a whole bunch of
time,
mushrooms and do a whole bunch of caffeine with it. And maybe that'll be
there you
comparable. Well, yeah. So mushrooms affect you though.
Yes, definitely. That would be a bummer if mushrooms didn't affect me.
Yeah. I feel you. That'd be a rough one.
Yeah. I don't know what it is about edibles that just, they've never like really fully transpired. And I've had multiple times where I've like eaten them with people and they're freaking the fuck out. And, you know, so I've definitely come to the conclusion that there's something wrong.
Body chemistry.
Yeah.
You've just been exposed to it so much for so long that it just doesn't get you anymore.
That's what I wonder. I'm like, like, did I eat too many edibles when I was a child or something? Like,
right.
Not a child, but, you know, high school days.
Sure. But being around cannabis all the time, you know, it's like you were exposed to it from a very young age. And I started smoking when I was 14. And right away I knew it was the one. Like it changed my life.
Yeah, you're like, I'll stick with this.
I tried psychedelics first because I was scared to smoke because I ran cross country in high school and I was really bad. And so I tried acid first. In the Bay Area, we have really good stuff. But then once I finally tried cannabis, I'm like, this is the stuff. This is the one.
Yeah, that's kind of how it went for me too. I was like, okay, I know what I'm going to stick to. I've always been like I like my drugs to be grown in the ground,
natural
kind of a person, raw form. So yeah, the shrooms and the weed were like the personal, I don't know, combination of probably forever for me.
Yeah, it's a good combo too. And I feel like, you know, mushrooms, I don't eat mushrooms all the time, but I go through waves where I eat them more often than other times. And now people are microdosing stuff. And I feel like that's great. We never microdosed back in the day. It was always like an eighth or a half an eighth. Yeah.
I haven't done anything like that in a long time, but
yeah.
I feel like I'm more cool with the microdosing, like a little more casual.
Yeah, I go through my phase, like Reggae in the River. We were at Reggae. You guys go to Reggae this year?
I did go to Reggae.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a good time.
Yeah, we were with Cutting Edge. Yeah, it was a great event. Royal Golden Cutting Edge. It was a lot of fun. We're doing that again next year. You guys should do it at the booth with us.
Yeah, we thought about it. It's I have to convince my dad about that one.
Another event. So my big thing is like, so I was at CannaFest too, and I want to support all the local events that I can. It's great going to Cannabis. It's great going to Vegas. It's great going to Chile, all these different places. I think that's awesome. But when people in Humboldt, Mendocino, Sonoma, you know, if you guys are watching the show, I want to support you guys. CannaFest was amazing this year too. And I was a judge of the rosin category. They had some really good stuff. And
hell yeah. That's awesome. I was bummed I missed it. I had gotten back to town like for the last day and I ended up just so sick that day. And poor Nat, he actually like pulled through and stuck it out and was hanging out there the whole time. So
totally. O'Teal and friends played. That was great.
I know. I was pissed I missed it.
Yeah. So what are you guys focused on for the future? I know you're focused on so many different things, but is there you guys are in Morocco. You guys are going even more global.
Yeah. Well, we're just, experimenting in new areas and, there tends to be kind of a calling for us now. And especially in places near Europe, Germany kind of immediately kind of took off and knew who we were. So that was really cool to just be able to, go in there and actually get them the seeds they've been wanting. It's, it's a really special thing.
Macedonia is popping off now.
Like I didn't even hear about that one. It's all over.
Portugal, Macedonia. I mean, there's all these countries going online. It's really impressive.
I know. Well, I think it's going to be pretty global eventually. And that's just a whole nother ballpark.
Asia's going to be tricky. So I'm curious about how Asia does it. I'm excited for it all at the same time. And then India, we got some seeds. We're basically testing a bunch of genetics from India. So I'm excited about that.
Cool. That's the other fun part about going to these different areas is just seeing how they cultivate and like what they've had going on, up until now. And I feel like California kind of always does retain like a major market influence. Whether we're leading it in a good direction is a serious question, but it is definitely like the kind of, inspiration and starting point for any trends in the industry.
Yeah. It's all the modern stuff. Well, I shouldn't say that. There's going to be people from other places that have definitely had impact. Like West Coast, California, like you say that anywhere that they have cannabis and they know what you're talking about pretty much. Maybe not all over India, but a lot of places it's like Cali weed is the weed to get.
I feel like, it's everywhere. It surprises me. Like we have, people reaching out to us all the time from the most random places and they're like know the top 10 strains in California. And we're like, okay, like, it is where the best stuff originated and not to toot our own horn too much, but it's I think it's earned recognition.
Yeah, it's wild how social media and things like Facebook and Instagram have really had an impact on our industry too, because people are able to see stuff from all over the world and they're able to get influenced by stuff so heavily where it's at the phone, the push of a finger, you're looking at different flower and different cultures and it's really opened the doors. It's good and bad, but I think that's one of the good things is like people are able to see all these different things that people are doing.
Yeah, I know. I think, it's been revolutionary for us. It's interesting just, having a brand that was 100% word of mouth and, like very under wraps. And then, going and being able to actually talk about it has like made the world of a difference, and I definitely am just grateful to have been able to, see my dad take like all of his projects and actually be able to share them with the world because, he's a humble, mellow guy and he just loves to just hang out on the farm and make seeds. And, if it wasn't for legalization happening at the time it did, like he, might just still be up there with absolutely no recognition whatsoever for, the brand.
Right.
So it's
so is that when you guys knew it was going to be a real business was like once recreational hit?
No, he already had made a business license for it like way back. It was, he had the name written up as just a seed company for vegetables in general. Yeah. In like 2001.
Wow.
So it was, it was something he planned for a long time. And then he got the, domain a while later and, never really did much with it online.
Right.
Next thing you know, legalization came after like just quite a while of him breeding for, all the homies and a few different orders around with like, tiny little business card packages that we would shrink wrap on with the little vial in it. And it was good times. It was classic, but.
Did you guys save a bunch of the original stuff?
We still have some little bits and pieces here and there. We have a little display case in our office and we keep some pieces. We used to make this really cool calendar and we can't find it, but.
Someone will have one. Someone that's watching this show might even have one. It's amazing how this show has come through with stuff like that. But like, the original calendars, my friend Josh Freeman from Roots in Harmony, he bred the silverback gorilla and a bunch of other genetics back in the day. And a strain called the Ripple Plum that was amazing. But he had this awesome calendar and I just found like those calendars were the best. The weed calendars from, 10, 20 years ago were all pretty amazing.
It was a fun one. It was all these little pictures of different strains we had at the time. And, then there was a picture of my dad in the back in one year and he had a full mask over his face and he's trying to be all low key.
That was the way to do it back then. It's like, it was dangerous and, you really couldn't show your face that much. Everyone had different names.
It was the reality. There's a lot of bumps on the road potentially if you messed up at all. And, especially once that committed, it's, there's no going back. Like if you get even just chopped 1 year, it's going to fuck your whole family.
Yeah.
And so it was serious stuff. Like, it wasn't anything he ever played around with, but, one of my favorite quotes from him actually is, "Fortune favors the cautiously bold."
Yeah.
And, I think that was kind of his methodology, was be careful. And, you don't ever want to be the biggest guy out there, but
you don't want to be the smallest guy
You don't
either.
want to be the smallest either. And always have a backup plan.
Always have a backup plan. That was what was taught to me when I was younger, was always have a backup plan.
Yeah.
And fortune does favor the bold. I've been saying that my whole life. And it's true. Anytime I'm about to do something stupid, I say that. It's worked out most of the time.
I guess it's always a bet, but
I mean, in life, you have to take chances. You guys are taking a chance with your seed company, just like I'm doing with my seed company and my genetics. It's like there's definitely risk involved. And I think small business owners have huge balls, and it takes a lot of risk and a lot of energy and a lot of commitment. You almost have to put everything into it at a certain point. And it's like 7 days a week, 365 days a year, you're thinking about business, even if you're not wanting to. But that's the beauty, the blessing, and the curse of it,
yeah.
I think.
It's one of those things where once you're like that tied into it, there's definitely no clocking out. It's not like you can just turn it off. But,
right.
That's also what makes the business special, in my opinion. And it's something that my dad has definitely put a lot of time and personal energy into it, and it's been a major inspiration for me. He's definitely taught me to be able to figure shit out on my own and never be scared to attempt something, even if, it's a little bit of a challenge.
Yeah.
Like, I made his entire permit himself. It was like a book this big, So.
Wow. Yeah, there's some days nobody's going to come save you. You got to do it yourself. You learn that quick in business.
Yeah, that's definitely a reality, especially in this industry. I think
For sure.
You can hardly get people to call back when they owe you a little check or something these days.
It's not as bad as it used to be. In some way, it's worse in other ways, but it's not as bad as it used to be. Like, I remember there's like Humboldt time, and then there's like normal time. And I used to drive up to Humboldt, and I'll be like, I'll be back in a day. And it would be like 3 days because you're on Humboldt time.
Yeah.
And you go into the vortex waiting for people. And this is before, we had cell phones back then, but not everybody had cell phones, and everybody's scared to talk on cell phones. And yeah. But Humboldt is a special place for sure.
Definitely like nowhere else I really know, but it's super special to me. Just, the way that the whole entire community has like been able to, kind of stick together throughout this whole process. And, everyone has all but the best intentions.
Right.
And, they're not going to stop trying to, do what they love in the place that they love. It's just,
they're going to keep fighting.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the thing that I would like to see the most out of everything in California is farm to table tasting experiences, just like they have in the wine industry for cannabis. You go to the farms. I feel like that would help save Humboldt. I think that would improve the quality of life for the people in the industry up there. But like being able to go and get the tasting experience, go meet the growers, go meet the breeders potentially, go up during harvest season, watch them harvest. I mean, they're starting to get bed and breakfast, things like that. But it's like we need tasting rooms for the industry. It's just silly that we don't have them.
I like that idea, honestly. That's a good one. I would like be an attractive thing to do for all the students that are coming in these days too.
Totally.
Something that I'm surprised hasn't been done yet, actually.
Yeah, well, they made it so you can't do direct sales too. And I'm like, that's not right. I think that, I understand the distribution model and how it works, and it is what it is, but I feel like there should be direct sales or a way for these farms to do direct sales. Money's tight right now. People, there's a lot of people suffering. So we've had to deal with overtaxation. I think that's been a big thing.
Yeah, it's been definitely a tough uphill kind of a battle. It seems like, it was a lot of false promise from the start at the end of the day. And it just became, to a point where it's not competitive if you're a small farm. Maybe if you're massive and you have, a shit ton of greenhouses going at once, and you can sell packs all day for $300 and that's fine for you. Like,
and you're able to make a living. That's wild.
But you know, they can maybe deal with all these loopholes and the crazy stuff that they throw at us all the time. But, you know, they definitely were just pushing a little too hard at the beginning there.
Agreed. I think we kind of settled on something that wasn't quite perfect. Not even wasn't quite perfect, but was not perfect. Yeah. And I think being we weren't the first in the US, but being one of the first, it's like we got to see how Washington did it and Colorado did it. And neither of those states did it perfect either. Washington has its own set of problems, but there's still stuff we really got to get figured out for everyone to be successful.
Only time will tell, I guess. But, you know, it's also just kind of disheartening to see the way that it's ended up like this.
It is, but I'm one of those optimists. So I'm very optimistic with everything.
Yeah.
Sometimes I shouldn't be so optimistic, but I am. I don't have any other way to look at stuff. And I'm the balance sometimes with my other partners and everybody with optimism.
I mean, no, that's honestly the best mindset to have about it. And, you know, at the end of the day, I think it will come back around and, you know, things are going to start to even out a little bit. So,
well, everything goes in waves. So I feel like it's not going to be bad forever. It isn't the last time it's going to be bad, though. It's like it'll get better and it'll get worse and it'll get better and it'll get worse. And that's just part of life and growing pains. And, you know, I would do this even if I wasn't getting paid to do it. So I'm just happy that I can get paid and I can work in a place where I love what I'm doing. It's like, I don't mind working 7 days a week when it's like I'm working, you know, my 18-year-old self would give me the big thumbs up for sure. Like, you know, and it's like my 80-year-old self, we're still working on that one. But like, I think my 18-year-old self would be totally blown away by the fact that I'm doing podcasts and I get to smoke weed all the time and I get to smoke weed for work, you know, and get to try different things. And I think growing plants, I mean, we're super fortunate to be able to be in this industry.
Absolutely. I mean, yeah, that's one thing that I, you know, always am just insanely grateful for is, you know, actually having the ability to do what I love and, you know, be able to do it in a place where it's possible. It's highly regulated, I guess, but it's definitely, a privilege. And, and I can't imagine being anywhere else. It's, you know, something we get to do kind of often is invite people just from other areas. Like, you know, the folks at our Barcelona branch I mentioned earlier. And, you know, they're not used to seeing what we have here in California. They're used to seeing, you know, small scale, usually like indoor grow stuff. And so taking them out and showing them like fields of plants, just like growing, and they're all in complete awe and wonder. It's, you know, definitely something I will never get tired of doing.
Totally. So we have a mutual uncle, Uncle Ed Rosenthal. Uncle Ed, and you guys spent a lot of time with him. I've spent a lot of time with him in my life. He's been very influential for me. And I see you guys have been taking him to events with you and really taking good care of him.
Yeah.
And I love that. I think that's so great.
I always have a great time having Ed around, honestly. He is such a trooper and will stay up as late as I do. He's like the last one up with me. He shows up and he is, you know, ready to go.
It's funny. I've known him for a long time. And at first I was like, this guy he's crazy. But, you know, he makes some interesting points. He's definitely a character.
He is an absolute character. He's hilarious. I have, you know, at first I wasn't sure. I was like, you know, is he just like pissed like right now? Like,
no, he wants to debate everything. He's a debater. You know?
And I honestly wasn't even sure if he liked me at first. And then, you know, I've gotten to know him pretty well over the last few years, just traveling around together. And he is one of my favorite people to travel with at this point. He always has an amazing story about every place we go. And, you know, he's the life of the party.
He is the life of the party. Yeah, he's such a character. And I mean, he smokes and he's really passionate about the plant. He loves cannabis on so many different levels. And he has such crazy, like he has this collection of crazy facts in his head that they'll just come out of nowhere. And I'm like, blown away sometimes.
Yeah, he's definitely quite a guy. And
when he came from a time where you had to think, like what he was doing, everything was kind of outside the box because nobody knew what the box was. We were learning about the box. And so he came with his writing and hit it from all these different angles and had all these crazy concepts. And some of them were totally crazy and some of them turned out to be actually genius.
Yeah, I mean, that's the beauty of Ed's work, I guess.
Yeah.
Inspiring for me to like think about people who had to fight that battle just to even explore what they love and wanted to do. So
he is a fighter.
He is, he was relentless and, pursued his passion. And that's something that I always will admire about Ed.
We wouldn't be here if it wasn't for people like Ed. We wouldn't be here doing what we do if it wasn't for people like Ed going to court and fighting for it. Writing books. I mean, my book, I pretty decent breeding book, but it's on the backs of guys like Ed Rosenthal, Jorge Cervantes, Rob Clark, Mel Frank.
Yeah, we had the joy of having all three of those authors come out and pheno hunt with us.
Yeah.
And that was, really special for me to have the opportunity to kind of learn from those guys because they are such a relevant part of the culture we know and love today, and probably wouldn't be here without people who
and the combined knowledge from those three people, especially Rob Clark is a wealth of knowledge too. He's on a whole nother level. He's like the guy. He's the one I look up to the most, probably out of the people in the industry. Reggie Gadino is another one. He's a friend and he wrote the foreword in my book. He's amazing.
Yeah. There's a lot of people that kind of paved the pathway to, bring us to where we are today. And for that, I will always be grateful because, it definitely wasn't an easy road. And, as you mentioned earlier, like people did hard time for cannabis and
a lot of people,
it still happens.
Right. Yeah. They're still locking people up. And I think for me, that's the best part of legalization is not putting people in prison for a plant. Yeah. I think it's silly. I think it's not right. And, you can call them outlaws, but don't call them criminals.
I never really was able to wrap my head around that personally either. It's, it's something that's always been kind of absurd to me because it's like you look at alcohol and that actually kills multiple people. It's highly dangerous. You
can see the bad in it. Yeah.
Some, like serious negative side effects. And then you compare it to cannabis, which is, like at the point was getting people arrested, thrown in jail for years and years and years.
Right.
And how is that, how is that even comparable? It just never made sense to me. Even as a kid, I was just like, why is it that cannabis is bad? Never got it.
Well, I think the problem is the cannabis tunes you in and alcohol tunes you out. And I think the problem with alcohol is that it tunes you out and it's dangerous, right? It numbs you to the world, where cannabis kind of tunes you in. It makes you look at yourself. And, I think it makes the world a much better place. Where alcohol, I think it's there and I think people enjoy it. I enjoy alcohol sometimes. But I don't think it necessarily makes the world a better place like cannabis does.
No.
It gives people panic attacks. Maybe that's bad. But I think that's the worst of it. It also makes you look at yourself from a different perspective. It kind of opens the world up in a lot of other ways. You
can make a negative out of anything if, abused in the wrong way, I guess. But I feel like just overall, it was the fact that one thing was totally socially acceptable and, everyone was doing it and it's legal and sold in all the stores and on the shelves and,
right.
And then next thing you know, it's like someone's getting picked up with an ounce and getting thrown in jail. And I'm like,
right.
And
they've got cases or cartons of cigarettes and that's okay.
Yeah.
But an ounce of weed, man, that's put you in jail for that. That's, it's such a weird way of thinking. And I think it's such a backwards way of thinking that you look at 100 years from now or 100 years in the past, maybe even, you start going further in the past or further in the future, they're going to be like, that's crazy. Makes zero sense. So, but there's a lot of things right now that are crazy. Yeah. Anything in life is a bunch of failure to get to the point where you're really good at it. Yeah. And then like also being willing to learn. I think that's a whole nother thing. Like I've just learned from so many experiences where I'm like, oh yeah, I'm never going to do autoflowers. Autoflowers suck. And now I breed autoflowers. I've been breeding autoflowers for quite a while now. But like there was a point where I was like, autoflowers are garbage. I was in Spain and I saw autoflowers that were this tall that smelled like hay. And this was like 2010s, something like that. And I was like, I'm never doing that. I don't want any part of that. And then, years later, I see good autoflowers. And next thing you know, I'm working with people that are breeding good autoflowers. Next thing you know, I'm breeding good autoflowers. And I think there's a place for a bunch of stuff. But to say that something's no good, it's like sometimes you have to look at it more than it's just no good.
There's something to be learned every time you fail anyways.
Right.
If you look at it that way. And, I don't think really any grow is ever a failure in my book. It's like I'm interested in, just about anything if I think that it's unique enough for,
Well, you can learn so much every time. And I think also data collection, like you probably grew up with data collection. Most people, I wouldn't say most people, but a lot of people don't collect any sort of data. They just grow to grow, or at least that's how it was. And now slowly but surely, a lot of us have really gone towards collecting a lot of data, as much data as possible, because that's how you improve. I think that's the best way to improve. And some people are like, well, it's not natural, is what somebody said the other day. I'm like, well, what is natural? You know what I mean?
The entire evolution of cannabis is via human assistance, essentially. So you can't claim that isn't natural.
Yeah,
I mean, we get all sorts of funny stuff. We have people tell us like the fem seeds are GMO and all this stuff. I'm like, I don't know if that qualifies, but
well, or that fem seeds are bad to breed with, or that fem seeds are anything. Yeah. I don't think there's anything wrong with feminized seeds. I think that regular seeds are good too. I do a round of regular seeds every year in my backyard, and we don't do any regular breeding at the facility ever because I don't want male pollen in. If there was a little bit of contamination where it's like, okay, some fem pollen got on something else, no big deal. Right? Like it would be very minimal.
Well, that's the difference with regs and fem pollen. People don't realize it takes a lot of fucking work to get the same amount of feminized pollen. Like, even lot of nearly,
work.
Right. So it's, it's a whole different ballpark, but I can understand why you wouldn't want regs around because those things will just poof all over everywhere. The place.
Yeah. And I love working with male cannabis plants. There's something special. They look amazing.
Yeah.
And especially the ones where they stack tight, where you have these male flowers that are just really tightly stacked. And it looks amazing.
I really like the reversed plants. It's like, it's interesting because you kind of get to see the 50-50 where it will retain like that bud structure.
Right.
Versus, the ones that are all just fully hanging down. So it's like, it's like a combination of both. It almost has the little spikes of pollen pods just coming out like a bud.
Right. I love shaking male plants. There's something special about seeing dusts of pollen and realizing what that is and what it's
satisfying.
Capable. Yeah, absolutely. The only reason I have a big Instagram following is because of that. It's because I shook the plants and got that dust cloud of pollen.
Yeah.
But there's something special about working with males and breeding and putting the time in with females. I think a lot of people, the female breeding aspect of it, it's like it's technical and there's a lot of timing involved. There's a smaller window, and if you really hit the window perfectly, your seeds come out nice and even. But if you don't, you're going to have a bunch of white seeds, a bunch of yellow seeds, a bunch of lighter seeds.
Oh, yeah.
I try to hit a real short pollination window when we do it and make sure there's way more than enough pollen. We always have redundancies. So we make pollen. We use live plants. Sometimes we hang plants. Just trying to get as much pollen in there with feminized breeding as possible.
You got to do it. It's, it's tough because once you're used to regular breeding for a little while, it's like, you just shake it once or twice and you're going to get a ton of seeds.
Yeah.
And then you switch over to the fems and it's, it's a whole different little world. And the pollen, I think, just doesn't like even release as well half the time. Is what
it doesn't produce as much.
And
some
things
it
produces a little less, but I feel like sometimes they don't open right.
Right.
And, they have like a tendency to get like just the tiniest bit of moisture in them and just
that's all you need is the tiniest and it neutralizes
screwed at that point, and then they just never open.
Right. So, and certain genetics just don't produce barely any pollen or none.
Some of them are so hard to get to flip.
SFV. Sure. I had problems with Blue Dream till we switched over to the nano silver that we use now. but that's another one where it's like an easy one. It's fairly easy to reverse and it creates a decent amount of pollen. But that's tricky too. Like what reversal methods do you use? And, certain reversal methods work better on certain plants. And, it's a lot of fun though.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think, as long as it's not, like a stress-induced reversal, then I approve of that method. I think, that's always going to lead to, potentially inbreeding some like intersex traits in the future if you're just stressing it out and seeing if it goes.
Herm seeds? Yeah.
I don't know if I can say that that's a effective way, but other than that, I've seen I've seen super, super successful fem breeding coming out recently. And so,
I mean, I think the autos that I have less than a 0.001% expression of intersex, which is really good, I think.
Yeah.
Like 1 in 1,000. But yeah, and I mean, fem seeds, it used to be like if you had 9 out of 10, you were okay. And now it's like 1 out of 1,000.
Yeah. No, so it really has. The standard is, always going up as it should.
Yeah, that bar keeps moving. And it's like same thing with genetics. I feel like there's some people that are just breeding the same gelatos, within that whole thing. And then there's other companies, Budgelero, they're from Mendocino. They're doing some really wild stuff with long flowering varieties. And
nice.
When I was at Cannabis, I realized the diversity up in Humboldt is way more than it is in the Bay Area because it's like so specific here. Purple, candy, gas. And you can go more gas and less candy, but it's got to be purple, a little bit of purple at the very least. And up there, you still have a good amount of variety. And then there's the white thorn rose, which kind of checks that box too.
Yeah.
Which I love.
It's true. There's definitely some really great like old school stuff up there. And, a lot of people that just like really, keep their stuff that they like to grow around rather than chasing off like what's, going to look good in their bag, I guess. Because it's like half the time, I mean, I swear the stuff that, I've tried some things from dispensaries where I'm just like, this doesn't taste like anything at all.
Right.
Like, where's the flavor?
There's so much of that stuff that's out that's just missing flavor. And like, I think some of the genetics they've put in there, like Oreos is kind of missing flavor. It's they say cardboard terps, but it's just kind of missing terps.
Cardboard terps.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, then Purple Punch is like the big letdown for me. It's like I go to smoke Purple Punch, and if you grow it, it looks so amazing. And you do like a finger rub, get a whole bunch of resin, smells pretty good. But then you light a joint of it, and like that initial joint you fire up is like, oh, it almost tastes like it might have something the next hit, and then it just doesn't. And then it just tastes like you might as well smoke tobacco, in my opinion, because it doesn't really have any flavor.
Yeah. No, that's never fun. It has to taste good.
Yep, but that's what I contribute to Instagram's contribution to the cannabis world is they've ruined the way, it's all about the way it looks. It's got to be, the bag has to look amazing, it has to be frosted. And you can have stuff that tastes amazing that's not super frosty. You can have stuff that tastes amazing that's not super beautiful. We need to refocus on effect. It's kind of my takeaway from the last 6 months of I've like I changed direction. Kind of, sometimes the boat goes to the left or the right. We had to get it back going straight. And I think effect at the end of the day needs to be the primary focus. And then terpenes is great, and there's other things like commercial viability. How many days does it finish in and all these things? But like really going back to that effect, like how does it make you feel?
I'm just, happy to see some interest starting to gain traction in like things deeper than the THC and the look of the bud, right? And I have always smoked for effect. Like if I, didn't like the effect of a strain, I'm definitely not going back.
Yeah.
But, it's also, I guess, just also the framework of the industry right now makes it almost impossible to like even go that extra mile when, you don't know if there's the market for it or, it's not even a question that's being asked right now.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, that's why things like this are important. And it's awesome that you're out there spreading the word.
Yeah. I mean, it's totally important. I think that going back to the roots of why we're all here, at the end of the day, it's the way it makes us feel. And all these other things are great. They're kind of superficial, but they're all great. But like the way it tastes and the way all these things should go secondary to like, how does it make you feel? we're doing this for, but also it's social. So you want something to taste good or something that tastes really good.
Yeah. I mean, it's just gonna be a constantly evolving thing. I think, people are getting more and more into learning and educating themselves on product, and
right.
It's gonna come with time. I feel like it's, something that I, as someone who's been consuming for a while, seems like, a no-brainer. I'm like, I just want to smoke some weed that tastes really good.
Yeah.
But I guess it's not, I have to put myself in that mindset of like, the new customer who hasn't ever been exposed to this stuff.
When most people have never smoked the quality of stuff that you get to smoke on a regular basis. And I just have to remind myself of that all the time, because it's like I have access to really amazing tasting and stuff that makes you feel good. But a lot of people have never experienced that once in their life. And if they did, it would change their minds like it did for me. It would change. It was like I smoked in the 90s, I smoked cat piss, and that completely changed. And that wasn't candy gas, nothing. It was skunky ammonia. And it was like all the way down to the roach, it was skunky ammonia. I'm like, what the hell? This is crazy. It tastes so good. And that changed me forever. And then sour diesel came along, the OGs that were like that, and the Bubba Kush and the Master Kush, that we went through all these things that were just absolutely amazing. And then Humboldt Outdoor.
Classic.
So what's your favorite strain?
Of all time? I definitely would say the blueberry muffin.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I've been really, really liking our orange cream pop this year too.
Nice.
So the tough
is it like
one.
orange ice, like the popsicle that has the ice cream in the middle?
Yeah.
Like an orange pop?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. It's like it's a citrusy, like super creamy, kind of different terpene profile. I haven't been used to it yet. So I don't know. I guess that's probably right now my favorite too, but
Subcool had like an orange creamsicle, but I don't know what it was called, but it tasted like orange creamsicle. I remember smoking flower, and I can't remember who it was, if it was Sonny Chiwa Shane from TGA or who it was, but they had the cherry cola and then they had the orange creamsicle. And it was like crazy to smoke these things side by side. Like the cherry cola tasted like cherry cola, and then the orange creamsicle totally tasted just like an orange creamsicle.
I mean, it is like incredible how much diversity there is in terpenes. Like it, kind of blows my mind still. I can't believe that it's actually just naturally bud sometimes. Like with some of these new candy ones and all the crazy exotic stuff. I'm like, Skittles, exactly. It's like, you're like, wait.
Well, blueberry muffin's right up there with that too. I feel like, there's some of these, it's like so close to like food, or so close to like, if these different things that we smell in nature, pine, like OG's really like really good OG is super piney. It smells like fresh pine needles. I love that.
And it's kind of a mind fuck sometimes though. I'm like, I feel like
there's just so much.
Yeah. It's wild.
Yeah. There's more diversity in cannabis than any other crop in agriculture.
Yeah. I've heard that. And like, that definitely blows my mind, but I believe it, because there is just, there's so much out there, and there's, even new, like totally different combinations that I still smell to this day. And I'm like, wow, that's different. I like it.
Right. Yeah. Imagine if we had that many types of artichokes, it's crazy. Like or any other thing you find in the grocery store. It's like, there's nothing like that with tomatoes, or, we have heirloom tomatoes. What is there? Maybe 15 or 20 that are commercially available.
I know.
At the very most.
And that is, that is kind of the freaky thing about, large scale agricultural crops.
It's a scary thing, for sure.
A lot of them get monopolized and turned into, 2, 3, 4 options, and it's probably going to be from Monsanto. If something like that were to happen in the cannabis industry, it would, it would change everything, and
it would definitely
not be ideal. But
no. I feel like there's too many people fighting that, honestly, if people try to do that, people would go back to the black market, right? So like the easiest way for them to get people doing the black market thing again, going from where we're at now, is to try to take what we have away from.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I think at the end of the day, it's like, it's also something that you have to have a background in, like in education, and be passionate about, like back to like, you're going to fail and it's going to take a while to grow your perfect plant. But, I don't think that some crazy like Monsanto scientists could just take up the world of breeding and make like the next best strain. They don't know how. They don't they don't know the plant. Like they're not, they're not passionate about it. The
only problem is there are passionate people that they could hire. That's the only problem is there's people that I wouldn't call them sellouts. Some people would call them sellouts, but I think because eventually we're probably going to sell our business. Like that's just part of the model is eventually, I think that it'll evolve into something. I'm not sure what. But we want to collaborate and work with people and build this business up to something. Now, working with Monsanto, that doesn't excite me. That's like working with Philip Morris.
Yeah.
And that's about as exciting as Philip Morris for me. But there are people that will sell their souls.
It wouldn't be the first time, but
for sure.
There's also a lot of people in the industry that, are way too loyal to the plant and
for
people to go there.
And they'll just fight to the death.
Yeah.
I think, the cannabis industry, there's a lot of hard-headed people that won't take no for an answer and they're going to keep fighting. I mean.
Yeah, gotta love them. I mean, that's how you get shit done.
Many generations too. It's like now we're on second and third and fourth generation people. It's like their grandparents did it now. And so soon it's going to be their grandparents' grandparents. And,
it's kind of a way of life. At least that's how I grew up with it. And so it's amazing to, get to see people passing it down to the next generations. And, every year it's at least getting a little bit easier.
It's a little more normalized every year. It's a little like the people who were against it like 20 years ago, most of them are like, well, it's not so bad. Like literally we're over 50% approval for cannabis in the United States.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say is it's getting a little easier for the average family to like even be involved in cannabis. And so, it's great to like actually be able to have that opportunity, I will say, but we'll see how it goes.
Seriously. So if you had one piece of advice for other females that are looking to come into the industry, what would that one piece of advice be?
It would just be to not get discouraged and to know that there's always space for you in the industry and you belong here just as much as anybody else. That's basically it. I would love to see more ladies. And the ladies that are in the industry today, I have so much respect for every single one of you.
Yeah, it's more and more. It's actually amazing. I feel like more and more we're getting women in and women CEOs, and there's plenty of room for everybody. Anybody who wants to do it, that's stubborn enough to do it and make it in this industry. And, we're not rock stars anymore. It's, we're farmers. And so there's room for everybody.
I absolutely agree with that. I think women belong in the industry for sure.
It's a lot different than it was 20 years ago,
It definitely is. I mean, I feel like, there's still some like stigmas around women and like their involvement. But, at this point, I think it's a widely accepted thing that like women have the natural touch for cultivation and, a special connection with the plant. And a lot of women grow some of the best weed out there.
For sure. So if people are trying to find more out about you and Humboldt Seed Company, where would they go?
They can go to our website, first of all, which is just the Humboldt Seed Company. And then our Instagram is the Humboldt Seed Company. And there's a lot of fake ones on that. So watch out for those.
It's the worst. That is the really worst. Annoying. I mean, I have verification and it's still bad. It's like.
Yeah, well, and we're like super shadow banned on our head account. And so if you search it, it's like 5 fake accounts first and then us. It's not ideal, but that. And then, our YouTube channel is like something that we frequently post a lot of educational content on. So if anyone wants to check that out.
You get some good content on there for sure.
Yeah.
Nice. Thank you so much for coming on the show. I look forward to seeing you in the future.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me. That was really fun.
Awesome. Thank you guys for watching. Please like and subscribe down below.